Good morning. It's great to be here. As Bonnie said, my name is Lillian Wege. I'm a master's student at the University of Michigan studying sustainability and urban planning. And this summer I've been working with the City of Holland on developing an operations manual for recycling drop-off centers. Before I tell you about my project, I'd like to acknowledge that it's the product of a network of experience and support. First, I'd like to thank my mentor, Dan, and my advisor, Kristen, who's here via Zoom, for their patience and guidance. Also, the professionals and facilities that hosted me throughout the summer and shared their time, space, and experience. This was invaluable. I had very informative conversations with consultants and recycling experts, and these really helped fill in the gaps of my knowledge. And lastly, the Grant Institute, Sarah, and my cohort of fellow fellows for this great experience. So this manual is meant for recycling drop-off centers. What exactly constitutes a drop-off center? In general, a drop-off center is a centralized location to bring recyclable materials. This could be a self-serve process for residents. For example, you bring your recyclables to a bin or container and drop it off. In some cases, like in Calhoun County, recycling staff will come to someone's car and get materials from the trunk or backseat and put it in containers that way. In general, drop-off centers are complementary to municipal curbside recycling service. So if you already have a curbside system, you can open a drop-off to expand recycling access. But for some communities, a drop-off center is the only feasible way to provide recycling access for their residents, and so it could be a standalone facility. If your drop-off center is complementary to a curbside service, it could accept the same recyclable materials or additional. For example, a drop-off center could be a center for hard-to-recycle materials, or TRON, and take things like batteries or mattresses. It might also take local materials like boat wrap for a coastal community. In general, drop-off centers manage the collection, sorting, consolidation, and processing of recyclable materials, but different drop-off centers will do this to different degrees. All in all, it's important to note that drop-off centers are a diverse group of recycling facilities, and they look different in every community, so keep that in mind as I tell you more about the project. Okay, so this project aimed to address 3 challenges at different levels. First, at the local level, the City of Holland is developing a new drop-off center. But in the beginning of this process, they found information about how to set up and run the facility pretty hard to find. So the first goal of this project was to create an educational resource for Holland City staff as they develop their new drop-off. The second challenge at the state level is that in 2022, Part 115 of the National Resources and Environmental Protection Act laid out a 45% recycling rate goal by the year 2030. This was also reiterated in the My Healthy Climate Plan, which I'm sure everyone here is familiar with. But today, Michigan's recycling rate is only 25%. So a second goal of this project is to develop a resource that supports Michigan communities as they expand recycling and achieve this goal. Third, throughout the recycling industry, experiential information about how to run a center is not really collected or written down. This also means that experiential knowledge is lost as people leave the recycling industry or retire. So a third goal of this project is to collect, synthesize, and preserve industry knowledge. To reiterate, the 3 goals of this project are primarily to create a resource specifically to support Holland's new drop-off center, more generally to make an accessible manual for all Michigan communities as they pursue recycling goals, and third, to centralize industry knowledge to share it and preserve it. Most of the information in this manual was collected over the past 10 weeks as I visited 5 successful recycling facilities. These included Emmett County's drop-off center in Harbor Springs, Biz Aid LLC here in Coldwater, Michigan State University's Surplus Store and Recycling Center, Recycle Ann Arbor, and Bay Area Recycling for Communities in California. From these 5 facilities, I collected a breadth of information. You can see in this graph that the 5 facilities cover different regions of the Lower Peninsula of Michigan. They also range in size, from managing hundreds of tons of recycled material per year to several thousand. They offer different services in addition to drop-off, like compost, a resale store, or being material recovery facility, or MRF. And they have different organizational types. For example, MSU's is obviously a university facility, but 2 of them are nonprofits. Most of the information came from these facilities specifically, so the document covers a wide range of experience and context. I'd like to share a few key insights I got from my site visits. First, materials contracts, which I initially thought were the foundation of the relationship between material recovery facilities or recycling facilities and buyers, the people buying the material from them. In my initial research, I understood this to be foundational. But as I had conversations with people at these facilities, I learned that they're not as important as you might think. Most professionals don't use contracts, and if they do, it's for a specific material that has a steady price over time, or for a material that doesn't have a very competitive buying market. On the topic of public education, I learned about the importance of building relationships with the community and establishing trust. Trust is the foundation of recycling. If a resident doesn't trust that you will actually recycle the material they give you, they won't participate in the system at all. And on the topic of equipment, again, similar to the contracts topic, in my initial research, I understood there were two types of baling equipment, the thing that consolidates material to make it more cost-effective to transport. There are horizontal and vertical balers. But as I had conversations with people, I learned that horizontal balers, also known as compactors, are far preferred. Every facility I visited either had a compactor and loved it, recently got a new one and was really excited about it, or really wanted one but couldn't get their hands on one. And this kind of information is something that I wouldn't have been able to get just doing research in my office. So it was integral that I went and visited the facilities and learned about aspects of operations that, again, weren't written down. In addition to the site visits, as I mentioned, I did supplemental research. I looked at local government documents, consultant reports, manufacturing websites, state policies. To fill in the gaps, I spoke to consultants on specific subjects like materials marketing, equipment maintenance, and regulation. And then at the end of the project, I reached out to experts in recycling to get some feedback. I wanted to make sure the information was both accurate and useful, and I got this feedback from EAGLE and the Michigan Recycling Coalition. So here you can see my manual, the cover, an internal page, and the first page of the appendix. The manual has 10 informative sections on topics such as design, equipment, maintenance, regulation, safety, you name it. The format of the information is take it or leave it. As I mentioned in the beginning, drop-off centers are a very diverse group of facilities, so not all the information in the manual will be appropriate or applicable for every facility. It's up to you as a reader to decide what's applicable for your facility and community. Similarly, the document is designed to be referenced. The manual should be read from front to back, although you are welcome to do that if you want. But instead, sections are clearly labeled, and you can find something like what kind of equipment you should choose when it becomes relevant in your process. As you saw in the pages I just showed, the end of the manual includes an appendix with additional resources, examples, and definitions. And the most important thing about the document is that it's based on real experience of recycling professionals in Michigan, so it's relevant for all communities. I'd like to take you through the citing section just to show you how it works. So, citing a drop-off center is the first chapter of the manual. The first paragraph introduces you to the topic of citing and why it's important to the success of your recycling facility. You can also see in the first paragraph that there's a link to the appendix in this top right corner. The references to other sections of the manual are scattered throughout the document so that you can easily locate relevant information. The first set of bulleted points is a list of features you should think about when you're citing a recycling facility. This is applicable for every community. The second list of bulleted points is specifically features you should look for if you're reusing a building. In Holland, for example, there are no reusable industrial buildings available, and so they could skip this section completely. But if you're looking to reuse a building, it's important. At the bottom of this page, we're moving on to the topic that is relevant for a lot of Michigan communities, which is that the site you want to use is a brownfield. I spoke to brownfield coordinators at EAGLE to understand the timeline of progressive steps in navigating brownfield remediation, and that's the first numbered list on this page. The next bulleted list is more tips about navigating brownfields, like where to get state funding and where to find more data about soil contamination. The last section in the citing chapter is a list of key aspects to include in your plan or presentation to the governing body, whether that's a town council or a board of trustees. Don't forget to keep these things in mind. For example, it's recommended that you split capital costs and operational costs and lean into a key feature that makes your facility unique. like a cool piece of equipment you got a grant for, or a community service like pumpkin composting. These will really increase community buy-in. So like all the other projects up here, this manual will be housed on the Eagle CLC website. It will also be used and maintained by the City of Holland. And it may be managed by the Michigan Recycling Coalition or Eagle. Those discussions are in the works. The manual is meant to be updated regularly, probably annually, as more information is collected and best practices and technology change in the recycling industry. Holland is also planning to add additional sections to the manual and develop interactive materials to support communities, such as a workbook or customizable spreadsheets. All in all, the manual will be part of a comprehensive suite of resources to support community recycling programs. By now, I hope you understand that this document has options and ideas for all kinds of communities, and has been developed and will be supported by a network of recycling experts. So I hope you will explore a drop-off center for your community. Thank you.